Welcome to the Porn Reboot podcast, where you get practical tips to gaining control over your porn or sex addiction. We help ambitious men end their out-of-control sexual behavior with pornography, sex, and masturbation so that you can maximize your life, perform at your potential, and remain in control in the driver's seat, which is where you have to be in order to gain or maintain the success you want in life. I'm your host, J.K. Emezi, certified sex and porn addiction recovery coach. Welcome to the episode.
There's a show I've been watching recently called Shogun on Hulu, and it's based on a novel by James Clavell or Clavell. I don't know how the last name is pronounced, but it was a book that I read in my childhood. And if you haven't watched Shogun and you're a fan of, let's say, samurais and feudal Japan and those period pieces, this is a great action series. And I rarely recommend series on this podcast, but I grew up reading this book. If I remember correctly, it was a monster of a book. And my girl was like, "Why are you freaking out?" I was like, "Oh my God, I can't believe that this is coming to TV." And so far, it's been a very enjoyable experience watching this because it doesn't have any agenda. I feel like so much stuff on TV these days has some sort of agenda. It's trying to shove down your throats, some sort of political correctness that might rub you the wrong way, or they're just going to straight up throw a dick in your face. There's nudity, but it's no longer tasteful nudity. It is straight up shock value. They want to shock you with it. And I'm just not a fan of it. Neither is my girl. We just like, God, there's so much trash on TV these days. But I'm really enjoying this. And the reason I'm bringing this up is because it got me thinking of awareness and mindfulness. I've always been a martial arts fan. The first martial art that I formally practiced was at the age of 18 when I was an exchange student in Malaysia, 17, 18 years old. I practiced Tanaka Ryu Jiu-Jitsu, traditional Jiu-Jitsu from a specific school, and there was a lot of awareness that was involved. When I first started as a white belt, I was trying to do everything by brute force, but I had to learn how to be mindful and deeply aware. And I will never forget being invited as was I a brown belt? No, I was a green belt. Being invited to a black belt grading ceremony. And our sensei had come in from Japan for a couple of days to do the training. And one of the requirements for somebody to get their black belt was they had to fight 10 other people. And I kid you not, this is traditional, old school in Asia. And I think back and I can just smell the tiger balm and the sweat and just the humidity of Kuala Lumpur as these guys were going through it. It was some hardcore shit. I really miss it. But long story short, this guy was grading for his black belt. He had to fight 10 dudes and he beat all of them. The amount of awareness to be able to throw someone effortlessly while simultaneously maintaining your peripheral awareness for the next person who is attacking you, some of them with weapons, is phenomenal. And I think we really underestimate that. When you take that back hundreds of years to the time of feudal Japan, like a show like Shogun, awareness for a warrior was quite literally a matter of life and death. So when the awareness of a samurai warrior fails, he died. In fact, as a student of meditation now, one of the things I learned was that back in feudal Japan, and excuse me for anyone who doesn't care about feudal Japan, I'm going to talk about it. That's what I'm going off of today. In feudal Japan, the samurais would meditate. But unlike the monks or the common people who meditated or participated in whatever form of Zen Buddhism there was back then, so samurai would come in just to learn the concentration piece because it allowed them to concentrate so sharply. And one of the things that happens when you're very concentrated is that your awareness increases. So when you're focused on a pinpoint and your concentration cannot be thrown off, your peripheral awareness increases. And you're aware of things behind you, to your side, while still being deeply focused on one thing, which is one of the reasons why that black belt who was taking his test, who had studied for many years, could throw a punch or could throw someone right in front of him with full concentration, but never lose awareness of all the things that were happening around him and the other people who were attacking him. Black belt is a different level. I'm not a black belt, but I've seen a black belt get graded, and it was crazy. Samurai did that because their life depended on it. Now, when it comes to you, your lack of mindfulness, your lack of generating that awareness leads to you and I, to be honest, forgetting the big picture. So what happens when we forget the big picture? Well, we start getting entangled in our own thoughts and in our own emotions. Our thoughts and our emotions are always there like other attackers. Let's say there are 10 attackers and we are focusing on one, which is work, which is whatever it is, driving, which is having a conversation with somebody, which could be even having sex. But if we are not mindful, what happens is that we get tackled, we get punched, we get choked out sometimes by our thoughts and emotions, which are in our periphery. So what happens is that we have a very narrowed perspective. I'm not saying concentration. I'm just saying our perspective is different because we are not seeing any of the things outside of us. We're not seeing them coming for us. So what does mindfulness help us do? Mindfulness, which is developed by working on our awareness, allows us, while we are rebooting, to first of all, change our past conditioning. An example could be, I'll give a very simple one, the conditioning of every evening you need to view pornography in order to go to bed, or every moment when you're very stressed out at work, when you return, you feel the need to reward yourself. Or when you come back from a very hard workout and your testosterone level is a little bit high, or you come back from any hard workout, you feel that you need to view pornography. Or any single time that you see something that triggers you sexually. It could be a joke, it could be in a window, it doesn't matter what it is, you are conditioned to react sexually. The awareness that is necessary to develop mindfulness allows you to begin the process of changing that conditioning. The second thing that it does for you is that it allows you to recognize your options. When you experience a strong urge, you do not know what your other options are. I'll say it again. When you experience a strong urge, if you are not at least in the middle stage of your reboot, you cannot recognize your other options. Now, when you don't have an urge, when you're listening to this logically, you're like, yeah, I know I have options. I know what I can do. I can distract myself, like therapists say. I can go for a walk. I can call a friend. I can do all these things. I can leave the room, change my environment. And I'm speaking a little bit sarcastically because while there's nothing wrong with these things, Porn Reboot is a serious program, guys. We do not run away from urges over here. You want to run away from urges? There's a lot of other podcasts. There are a lot of other places where you can go and you can spend forever learning different ways to distract yourself. We face our urges. But while you're facing your urges, you also need to be aware that you have other options. And this cannot be done rationally unless you train yourself to do so. So unless you have training wheels would be a worksheet, training wheels would be a checklist that get you started. And then as you proceed from the middle stage of your reboot towards the late stage of your reboot, you're able to just start doing this in your head. And finally, the awareness, which leads to mindfulness, allows you to choose your responses carefully. It's one thing to recognize that you have options, but some of you you've recognized that you had options before, and you know what option you chose ultimately. But choosing the right response is a whole different skill set. So first of all, you have to realize that you can change your past conditioning, and you actually have to believe it. Guess what? You cannot believe it if you are living in a state of hopelessness. If you are not only in a relapse, but you're feeling deeply emotional about that relapse, you're beating yourself up about it, and you're telling yourself this story that, it's always been like this. I got people who get on calls with me. JK, I've been addicted since this has been a problem since the early days, since the university, since blah, 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 blah. I don't listen to your story. Well, I listen for the first time. And after that, I'm like, we're no longer telling that story. If you feel hopeless and you're stuck on your story, you won't believe that you can change your past conditioning. So this is one of the first things we do we help you in the program with. Secondly, the awareness that you're going to develop will help you recognize your options. This is not some magical capability that you have right now. Your brain is not wired that way. And finally, you're going to be able to choose your responses carefully. Now, awareness is the first step. Ultimately, I would love every man who is using the Porn Reboot system to become a mindful individual, mindful in every aspect of their lives. When you develop that awareness, it also allows you to step back and begin to observe the state of your mind. You begin to train your attention. I'm going to talk now about attention and awareness. Your attention, first of all, your attention picks out objects and then it analyzes them and then interprets it. Your awareness, on the other hand, focuses on the relationship of objects to each other. I'll give you an example. So let's say you're walking down a rural road. I've traveled a lot. I've walked down rural roads. I've lived in tropical countries, lived in the deserts of New Mexico, lived in the plains of Kansas. And I know what I'm afraid of. I am afraid of snakes. Doesn't matter where they are in the world or whether they are poisonous or not. I don't like snakes. And an example would be walking down a country path and you see something really long in front of you. You're like, damn, that's like 7 feet long. That's ridiculous. And you start trying to figure out, is that a snake or it looks like a snake? But as you come closer to it, still freaking out, you find out that it's not a snake, even though it looked like it was moving. It was actually just a long line of ants across that path. That is what awareness does. So attention is what allowed me to see that line. Attention was like, oh my God, it's an object. And attention said, that must be a snake. But awareness took a look at it and focused on the relationship of the object to the ground, to the terrain, and it did that very quickly. And then it tried to find out if it was really a snake or not. Turns out it wasn't a snake. Now, what would have happened if I had only attention? If you have only attention in that situation, you will immediately assume that it is a snake and you would react accordingly, even though that is not the reality. Now, translate that to your life. How often do we do this in conversations? How often do we do this just to ourselves? Like you get on a meeting at work, let's say it's a Zoom call, and your attention has been trained to be drawn to certain things. You're drawn to something somebody says or the way somebody looks at you, and immediately your attention picks up on that object, translates it, analyzes it, interprets it, and says, this person thinks I'm dumb. This person doesn't respect me. XYZ. It just goes on with that. But if you have cultivated awareness, you're able to not be so reactive. You look at it and you begin to analyze. Oh, maybe this is just in my head. Maybe I just don't like them and I'm overanalyzing their tone towards me. Maybe they're having a bad day and I'm just taking it the wrong way because I don't know who the heck that person is anyway. It's their first time there. Do you see the importance of awareness? So when you train your attention and your awareness together, that is going to improve your mindfulness. The goal as you go through the Porn Reboot program over time is to cultivate your attention and your awareness. You want them to work together. Now, I'll go a little bit deeper. This part might be a little bit advanced, but bear with me. I hope you gain something from it. Attention and awareness come from somewhere. They are not random. They get energy from your consciousness. By consciousness, I'm not talking about any woo-woo stuff. I'm talking about you are an individual who is conscious. You're walking around being conscious. There's conscious, and then there's unconscious, like when you're sleeping or when you're knocked out. But your consciousness is a very limited power source. If it wasn't a limited power source, then you would be conscious at all times. Now, the truth is you are conscious at all times, but it is to varying degrees. So there might be times when you are in deep meditation. There might be times when you're asleep. There might be times you're in very deep sleep, and there are times when you're in light sleep. But you're not fully conscious all the time. I'll give you an example of how attention and awareness work when it comes to energy, and why your consciousness, which is where the energy comes from, is a limited resource, something you can relate to. Let's say that you have a week where you are super focused on knocking things out. You've put the blinders on and you have decided that this is the week that you're going to catch up with everything at work that needs to be done. There's nothing wrong with that. But you are spending all your energy on attention, and nothing is being spent on awareness. This becomes a problem because anytime something unexpected comes up, such as an urgent matter or emergency of some sort, or if you get into an argument while the blinders are on and while you are fully focused on something, you are going to spiral out of control emotionally. You're quickly going to generate a lot of stress. And usually, for those of us who struggle with an out of control behavior, it leads to us binging because all of our energy was spent on focusing on knocking out those tasks. And there was no simultaneous awareness, which a true rebooter eventually has to develop, that allowed you to deal with things that were happening in your periphery. Things are always happening in your periphery. Remember, early on I said your lack of awareness leads you to forget the big picture. And you get caught up in your thoughts and emotions that are always around. They are always arising in the background. It's the same thing. The samurai who fails when it comes to his awareness dies. It was a matter of life and death. These days, some of us who are high performers are fully capable of getting in the zone and just getting things done. But those are the times when we are most likely to slip and relapse. Sometimes it's as a result of stress. Sometimes it's as a result of something completely unexpected. In fact, I'll give you one situation in which this happens. When you fall in love, or when you are making a very important buying decision, and the thing that you're purchasing is something that you're very biased towards. Falling in love would be you giving all your attention to a woman. It would be that, this woman is so beautiful, she looks so good, she is my type. You are only focusing your attention on her positive traits because you want to get something from her. You start fantasizing about what a life with this woman would be like, what it would be like to date her, but you're lacking in awareness. All the energy is dreaming about her, waiting for her to call, excited when she texts. You don't even see your energy being moved towards attention and away from awareness. Awareness allows you to see the red flags. Awareness allows you to see the inconsistencies in the story she's told you or in her behavior. Many people get in trouble in their lives. Many people lose relationships, even lose jobs. Some people lose their health. And many of us, of course, we already know what the deal is. Many of us stay stuck in our out of control behavior and do not seek help because we are lacking in awareness. The message is that we have to simultaneously train our attention and our awareness. Our attention picks up objects and situations. It analyzes them. It interprets them. The interpretation of our attention is biased, just as it comes to falling in love or when we're focusing on work and telling ourselves that work is the most important thing at that point. It is our awareness which focuses on the relationship of those ideas and of those objects to each other. It is awareness that allows us to make the smart decision, whatever we consider to be the right decision. It is with attention and awareness working together that we are able to focus on our goals, not get sidetracked, not slip, not relapse, and ultimately live a more satisfying life. And the entire Porn Reboot program was developed with this in mind. Now, it's a challenging, and I would go as far as to say, advanced idea to teach to men who are right now, if you're listening to this, probably struggling with this out of control behavior. So what I did was that I made it very elementary. I created worksheets, I created exercises, I designed the entire group and the way that we interact with each other within the program to gradually help you improve your awareness and your attention in the right way. Many men who join our program come in with great attention. You say, no, JK, I don't have great focus. My focus sucks. I don't have a great ability to pay attention to things. But what happens when you decide that you're going to view pornography? Mr. ADHD, Mr. ADD, what do? Oh, you have attention. Your attention is on that phone. It is not moving away from the phone. It is not moving away from the screen. It knows exactly what its goal is. Its goal is orgasm or to feel a certain way. And it is doing it very systematically. It is finding the right tabs. It is finding the right genre. It is checking in with you and going like, hey, like, is this going to lead us towards the goal? No, this is boring. No, we've seen this before. No, this is not our type. No, this is gross and that is good. Oh yeah, that's nasty. It is analyzing, fully focused on moving you forward. So you do have great attention. You do. What you are lacking in is awareness. You do not have awareness to start linking your emotional states as you're viewing pornography. Like, wait a minute, bro, what the heck are you doing? You were supposed to be working right now. Hey, you do know that you have an appointment coming up, right? You do know that your wife is expecting you to pick her up. Or those of you who are like supposed to pick up your kid from school or something, and you're still watching pornography. It's your awareness that does that. Oh, you do know that you're rebooting, that you're in the program, that you told your accountability partners that you were going to reach out to them, that this is going to have a consequence, that this is actually pretty gross. Like, this doesn't make sense. Like, you're watching people having sex. Awareness does all these things, and you have to develop it. So enough said. If you haven't seen the show Shogun, I highly recommend it. Heck, I might even go watch it tonight. Have yourself a good evening. Thanks for listening.
I'm JK, your brother in this struggle. Thank you so much for listening to this episode of the Porn Reboot podcast. I'll speak to you later on in the week. If you found this episode helpful, here are 4 ways I can help you with your out-of-control sexual behavior for free. The first way is to grab a free copy of my book, Confessions of a Porn Addict, 7 Secrets of Porn-Free Men at elevatedrecovery.org, or visit the link in the description below this episode. The second way is, if you're not sure where to start, but you'd like to learn more about my team and I, if you'd like to spend time with like-minded professionals and business owners who are controlling their behavior, then join our free and confidential group, the Porn Reboot group on Facebook. There's a link to join in the description below this episode. The third way is, if you need help right now because you have a burning issue, your behavior with pornography is hurting you mentally or emotionally, you're about to lose your relationship, you want to live up to your potential, be an authentic man, and free yourself from shame, guilt, and underachieving, then click on the link in the description below this episode that says free coaching call. And the fourth way is to leave us a 5-star review if you enjoy this podcast, so that we can reach more men who are struggling in silence and bring back the lessons we learn from coaching them to freedom.